Hi, and welcome to the NLP UK Training podcast. I'm Callie Fraser.
And I'm Steve Kay.
Now, in our last episode, we talked about something called cargo culture. And that kind of got me thinking about some of the things that we see within businesses these days. I call it a tick box culture. I was talking to one of my clients who I'm doing some career coaching with.
Yeah.
About their organization, and this client is very, very unhappy in what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that we delved into the reasons for that unhappiness, the organization that they work for seems on the face of it to be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
They advertise what a great culture they have.
Yeah.
They have all these additional incentives for staff. They have well-being programs. They have flexible working, unlimited holidays.
Beanbags.
Yeah, beanbags, sweetie walls, all sorts of great stuff. So you walk in, literally, they do. But literally, you walk in the doors of businesses like this, and on the face of it, they look amazing. They are ticking every box a potential candidate would want to have ticked in terms of culture when they walk through that door for an interview. However, it's a bit like a flashy sports car that's all shiny and beautiful on the outside, but you lift the hood and the engine is rusty.
It's a bit like the old Tom Cruise film, The Firm. You get seduced by the partners.
Absolutely. But actually what this client was describing was a real mismatch between what it says on the tin and the behaviours that are actually happening within the organisation. And I think with, the organisation, probably the senior leadership team really have a belief that they have this culture. But actually underneath, the behaviour from managers within the business as you work down completely disregards that culture, and they're still set in very, very old-fashioned command and control forms of working. And what this does, it makes people feel really unsafe. So there's a lot of talk about psychological safety in businesses at the moment, and this is a great example of it. This particular client was saying that they didn't feel safe to express their opinion and say, well, actually, what you say our culture isn't what's actually happening. They didn't feel they could go and speak to one of the senior leaders and have that conversation because they were quite happy in their ivory towers going, we've done everything that we need to do.
Okay.
So how can businesses get better at actually embedding the cultures that they want?
Well, it's got to start with the people at the top, surely.
Absolutely.
It's like those organisations, Frederick Laloux suggested that the ultimate was like a teal organisation where you have self-managed teams and people were trusted and they did their own recruitment into teams, and they did some work in Europe with a care company, and they found that where they trusted people to go in and spend as much time as they wanted with people, then they recovered faster, and they took out all layers of management and just had coaches in place. So, but that you had to start at the top. You had to have leaders who could let go.
And I think it's also about leaders that ask themselves some of the hard questions. Rather than just accepting things on the face of it, what is actually happening? They've got to lift that hood.
Yeah.
So being open to asking yourself questions like, is what we say we do what we actually do? Do people feel safe to come and talk to me? Are they telling me what I want to hear, or are they telling me what's really happening? So I think it starts really with being very open to feedback. And being very, very open to not taking offense when things aren't the way that you think they are. Because if your belief is, as a leader, everything's great when it's actually not, and people are leaving, if you don't know the reasons for that, the true underlying reasons why people are coming to coaches like myself or Steve for career coaching to help them find new positions where the culture does fit with their values. It's not just about having those values on the wall.
No. And in fact, what Lelou said was that these organisations that were what he called teal were, they didn't have the values on the wall.
Didn't need to.
They hadn't even written them down, but everybody kind of knew what they were. They lived by them as opposed to ticking the box.
Absolutely. So do you think these teal organisations do actually exist?
In small, very small quantities. I think you hear of organisations like Richer Sounds, the hi-fi company, and people like that are moving towards that. But it's all about the leaders being able to let go and trust. And it's also about organisations being prepared to have stretching goals as well and not be constrained to achieving very small incremental budgets. Much better to have bigger goals. But I do think it starts with people at the top. And I do think that executive coaching or leaders learning about NLP and about their own values is something that I tell you what, we do get a lot of HR organizational development managers come on the NLP practitioner, and they come on because they want to learn how to communicate things better. They want to introduce stuff into their organizations like this kind of. Do you remember when we did the stuff on positive leadership?
Yeah.
And we talked about the positive psychology elements, and we had and some organizations kind of want to be like in the norm, doing what everyone else is doing. So, a few years ago, everyone was doing Six Sigma. Before that, 25 years ago, everyone was doing total quality management. And so everyone jumps on the bandwagon doing the same thing. And they're kind of like the norms. And what we're talking about is organizations that, that come across as being really positive, but actually underneath that, the behaviours don't match with the words, do they?
And some of the things that NLP can help with, certainly some of the HR managers that come along to our programs have fed back, is that actually they understand language much more. So they're truly listening, not just listening to that surface level of what someone's saying. They're able to delve down underneath it so they can start to recognize where people don't feel safe.
Yeah.
Where people aren't saying what they really think. And they're able to ask coaching questions that will delve underneath that language to get to what's actually happening so they can do something about it.
We had Ali in the NHS as a senior leader on a diploma in coaching, level 7 diploma in coaching. He used a lot of metaphors, didn't he, to describe what was going on. So from his deeper structure of his belief system, he would be coming out with these metaphors like, I've got the sword of Damocles holding over me. Now, some people might let that wash over, but a good HR leader will be saying, come on, Ali, tell me, what do you mean by that? Mm-hmm. Well, it's dog eat dog out there. And, I feel like I'm going to be kneecapped, he once said. So, a good listener will be able to listen to those those metaphors and unpick them with them and, get them to explain where they're coming from. Because they're the ones that's the true stuff, isn't it? Where people are using those metaphors.
And ultimately, I think these businesses want a great culture.
Yeah.
So, we can help you really dive into what's happening underneath that hood, and take some of that rust off for you, and really help you out. So guys, if you are, a senior leader in a business, or perhaps in an HR function, and you're curious about how NLP can help you get better results with your culture, and ultimately with the results that your business is getting, please get in touch. Our website is nlpuktraining.com. We'd love to have a chat. So Steve and I will see you next time on our next podcast.
Cheers.